There we go. Boundless Voyage twig stove. A little bit of a trek out here, bring the dogs out for some much needed exercise. It's been absolutely frigid lately, and today the frigid cold weather has cracked and it warmed up a little bit. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to go for a little hike. And also, my plan is today is to try out a new twig stove that I purchased a couple of months ago. I've yet to try it out, and I want to try it today. So I'm going to find a place to get set up. I'm going to fire up this twig stove, make a coffee, and see what it's all about. Let's get set up right here. Let's get started with this little twig stove. There we go. Boundless Voyage twig stove. And just for the sake of, since I'm out here on the video, it happens to fit perfectly in this GSI cup. The old famous GSI, I think we're all familiar with the stainless steel GSI cup. And this twig stove happens to fit perfectly inside of it, which is awesome. I like when things kind of nest together. Makes it easier to pack things around. But let's look at this stove. It has 5 parts. These two, I don't know what you call them, grills, grates, I don't know, they go on top. But in any case, this is a 3-part stove. And I'll show you in a second how it goes together. And although it's only 3, well, it's 5 parts counting these guys. But the main chamber is 3 parts, and although it seems really simple, it's actually, until you do it a couple of times, it's kind of confusing a little bit on how it goes together. And let me show you that right now. So this is your main burn chamber. It's all vented underneath. You drop him through, and then the 3rd piece, you invert it, and that drops down like that. And then these guys here kind of lock together, and you put them on top, and that's your pot support right there. So let's, first thing, I need to gather some twigs. Let me grab some dry twigs, and I'm going to do a first burn with this thing and get a coffee happening. Okay, I got some a little supply of dry twigs, and if this thing is anything like other twig stoves that I've used in the past, these things are really hungry for twigs, and when you burn these guys, you need an ample supply. Hi Misty. So we'll see what happens, because this is the first burn, right? And this is a gasifier stove. You'll see there's a row of vent holes, and I'm a little bit familiar with gasifier stove with the old trusty Bush Buddy twig stove. I've used them before. I expect this to be similar, so we'll find out. I think what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to separate it until I get the burn chamber filled. And what do you think, Misty? I got my birch bark, and I'm just going to crunch that up. Drop it in there. And like any other fire, you want to start with the smallest twigs. Okay. Keep move. Looks good to me. I'm not too sure if this is how is the best way to doing it, but that's how I'm going to do it today, because we're learning how it's done. Now, TWIG stoves, I have been using the Firebox Nano. For those of you who are familiar with different brands of TWIG stoves, and the Nano is okay, and I'm just going to say leave it like that. It's just okay. It's not a great stove. And I think one of the biggest problems with the Nano is it's too much of a small burn chamber. So I'm going to light this the same way I do with my Nano, which is I light it from underneath. I load it up and I light it from underneath. There we go. Now while this is going, this stove is not a new design. There's a lot of companies who make this stove. I think odds are there's a lot of rebranding going on with this design of stove, because I've seen them a lot, and it's the first time I ever get one myself, so yeah, something new. Oh, there we go. Now we have full-on flames. So this would be the point where I think it'd be a good time to put some bigger twigs in here. Now you have a feed port on the side here. Looks pretty decent. Feels relatively stable, although it's a tall order. Once the coffee pot goes on, which is my French press, obviously you're going to have to be careful because it starts to get a little bit elevated. I think it's good to mention while we're sitting here waiting for this to burn up and get some coals going inside there, that you want to have the bottom of the stove so these air ports here, you want to keep those clear. If they're not clear, if you're restricting airflow, it's not going to burn right. Any TWIG stove, anytime you see any air holes, you don't want to restrict them. Therefore, you want to have this propped up in a way where it gets plenty of ventilation. Oxygen is everything with fire. Already getting some discoloration on it. It is titanium, and the titanium aspect of it certainly was not what made me buy this thing. I couldn't care less if this was stainless steel, actually. The ultralight thing is not a huge deal for me, because I don't necessarily backpack, I canoe, so I don't particularly look for ultralight gear, but it is nice to have. So far, if I was to compare this right away, compared to the Firebox Nano that I've used, and many of you have seen me use it, it's actually much nicer to utilize as far as feeding it. I can really dump them in there without fear of knocking things over. Now, as you notice, I'm not timing anything. I don't have my watch out or anything like that because I really don't care how long it takes to boil water. I know it's a big deal for some people, backpackers mostly. They want to maximize their fuel and different types of stoves, and they want to know how long it takes to boil water. I really don't go out in the outdoors to be on a race. For me, the joy of being out here is to slow it down. And it's not fair really to do a judgment of how long it takes to boil water when you're using twigs, because depending on the condition of your twigs, whether you're using hardwood, softwood, the size of your twigs, the moisture content of the wood, all these things play a major factor on how long it takes for to boil water. So I'm not going to go down that alley of boil time and stuff like that. There you go, you got your own twig. So right now I'm noticing feeding this chamber that it is quite easy to feed it. The opening is large enough to do the job. I don't have any issues feeding it. And also, if you notice, I'm feeding it continuously. And again, like I said earlier, like I mentioned earlier, twig stoves, those things, they're thirsty for twigs. You got to continuously feed these guys. I already gave you a twig. Do you want your own twig? Here, you take this twig. You want to go get it? You want to go get it? "12 and a half years old, still plays fetch." I'm doing my coffee cowboy style. As you've seen, I just dumped the grinds in there. And that is my favorite method of making a coffee. I do it cowboy style, but at the end of it all, I put in the French press and I press it down. Instead of shocking the coffee for the grinds to go to the bottom or something like that, I just simply use the press and I press it down afterwards. But there's a couple of key things you have to remember if you're going to do it this way, and that is I don't stir the coffee. I put the grinds in and you let them float on the surface, and I let as the water starts to boil, it'll roll itself into the water. And then I time it how long I leave it in there for, which is 1.5 to 2 minutes. So far, I have to say I don't really see the gasification going on. It hasn't really started yet, so I don't know if there's too much material in the base in order for the air transfer to make its way through. But I'm looking at the bottom. Actually, you can see the smoke coming out from the backside. So the gasification has not actually caught. I can see, I'm looking inside the burn chamber, and where the inner holes are, where the gasification gets, where it burns the smoke. And I see some of the holes are starting to get some flames coming out of them. I'm thinking right now at this point that my twigs, because I have twigs that are long enough to extend to the top of the stove, that's preventing their true gasification from happening. So I'm resisting the urge to blow into it to add more oxygen. I want to see how it will perform completely on its own. I've stirred up some of the coals in the bottom, and it's simmering away down in there. But as soon as the flames died down a little bit, obviously my coffee boiling process has slowed down as well. I do feel good heat, but not a tremendous amount of heat. I'm going to add some more and see if we can get these flames back up. And this is the point where for my coffee I don't want a raging boil, I just want a slow simmer. So I have to elevate my coffee in order to control the heat. I'm almost ready for my coffee. Okay, now's the time for my coffee. The Boundless Voyage twig stove. Would I recommend it? For my first burn here today, I would say yeah, I would recommend it. It performed well enough for my liking. I'm not sure about the gasification aspect of it. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on that for on future uses. But I'm gonna continue using it, and it's satisfactory for me. Now, TWIG makes one that is just about the mirror image of this, or vice versa. Like I say, there are other products out there that make similar to identical, and I've never used them. This is my first time using this one, and the reason why I bought Boundless Voyage, it was the price point. It was less expensive than other ones similar to it on the market. Especially for the titanium aspect of it. Thank you for joining me here today in the woods. On behalf of me and the girls, take care out there. Catch you on the next one.